Is a honey roast something that actually people do online?
No, they did it in New Girl. It was very good.
What's New Girl?
What do you mean? You've never seen New Girl?
I don't know what New Girl is.
What?
Should I know what New Girl is?
Yes. This is the place where we chat all things life, culture, and faith in Jesus. Welcome to
Spill the Chai. That's really cold. The Naujavan Podcast, the idea or heart behind it has been that we would kind of take our conversations that we're always having and just film them.
Yeah, and
We've
I guess have some
experienced.
of these conversations that like we would have wanted to have as kids, right? Or
Yes.
it would have been beneficial to hear from.
Yes.
And to like have people talk about experiences that you had growing up that you're like, oh, I thought I was the only one that felt that way.
Yeah.
But you figure out there's millions of us that felt the exact same way, and it's comforting. Yeah.
And that was always the mission of Naujavan, was creating that kind of space.
Yeah.
A space to inspire, develop and equip young South Asians in their Christian walk.
Yeah, I grew up in Harrow, and then like lived in Bolton for a while. So both very like Asian hubs. Loads of Asians live there. You knew everyone knew you. And like our family was quite big in the temple as well. Like we went very regularly.
Every day, right?
Yeah. And my grandma is like, she's a big name in the temple.
Yeah.
And kind of everyone knows her. And so like grew up in this strange mixture of cultures, like a third culture in a way. Like my dad was first generation immigrant from Kenya, and then my mum second gen. My grandma came from India, but my grandma then like lived with my grandma for a while, so like, you know, had the plastic on the remotes, and
Who didn't?
you know,
Come
well,
on,
the white kids,
that's like your
but
yeah, true.
they
That's your
didn't have it.
authentication kind
Yeah,
of
that's how
certificate,
you
isn't
know.
it, for being South Asian?
Yeah.
What is third culture? So you're sort of explaining it, but what is this third culture kid type thing?
Yeah, it's this weird, like I'm was Indian, but very very Indian at home.
Yeah.
And then went to school with like I went to a very multicultural school, so like kids were mostly Asian,
Yeah.
but like very very multicultural, very Eastern European school, and so had just this like experience of like trying to be a British kid in a British world with British values, and your parents raise you to fit in, right? They're
Yeah.
like fit in with school kids here, but also you then go home and you like eat dal, and you're like, what? This isn't fitting in, mum.
Yeah.
Like I don't know
So
what to do.
it's like saying that there's a culture at home, there's a culture at school,
Yeah.
but you're somewhere in between those worlds.
Yeah.
So you're this third culture.
And I was fine being Asian when I was with my family, and it was
Yeah.
okay. But the second I wasn't, it was this like gross discomfort. And I actually feel really ashamed of it when I think about it now as an adult, that like I love being Asian. It's a big part of who I am. But growing up, I would like, if I could be anything but,
You would have you wanted to distance yourself.
as far as I could.
And that's an interesting experience for me when I hear you talk about that, because of you were in a very South Asian location.
Yeah.
And you had a large amount of South Asian friends, and yet still, as someone in that third culture, you were wanting to distance yourself
Yeah.
from the culture. So,
That's so weird.
from an identity perspective, it's quite confusing.
Yeah, for a child as well, you're like, I don't know. Did you ever have culture day at school?
No.
Oh my gosh. Hated it. Where you like
What's culture day?
You could like come in your cultural clothes like
Oh, I
one
see.
day a week.
So
and
you
I
had
was
to wear like a
I literally was
sari.
like, Mum, put me in a Union Jack shirt, please. I just
sake.
I can't do it. Now I'm like, wouldn't be caught dead in
Yeah,
one
but
of
that's so
those, but-
strange, because no one else in your environment would have been.
No, and like all the dinner ladies at my school were Asian. Most of the teachers were Asian.
So
most of my friends were
so
Asian.
Explain it. Why the distance? Why so against embracing your cultural heritage, identity, story?
It's just embarrassing. Like I felt embarrassed that my family was so like quote unquote fresh, right? Like we were very Asian.
Okay.
Like ate curry every day for dinner. like didn't really eat other things.
Mm.
My mum sent me to school with a curry sandwich every day.
Yep. Fabulous. Love a curry sandwich.
Moist.
I don't think I've actually ever had a curry sandwich. I'm not like ticking the Asian box.
You haven't lived.
No.
Just whatever curry she made the night before, slap between two pieces of bread and just have it at lunch.
And how did that make you feel?
Oh my gosh, I was like, everyone can smell me. It was awful. It was awful. I was so desperate for a cheese sandwich. And every day I'd be like, Mum, maybe this is the day. Maybe this is the day.
It was never the day.
Yeah. It never was.
And did those sorts of experiences, they added to the like, I just want to remove myself from the cultural world.
I think also like what I was seeing on TV as a kid wasn't like
you weren't
in
represented.
favor of Asians, right?
Yeah.
The girl who always got the boy in the TV shows was the like tall, pretty, white blonde girl. And I desperately when Hannah Montana came out and I figured out that you could be blonde because you could put a wig on, I was like, this is my moment. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to become Hannah Montana. I'm going to put on a blonde wig.
I wish we had like a photo we could insert now of you. Like 10-year-old you.
I was desperate. I remember there was this one in Claire's and I was so desperate for my mum to buy it for me. It was like £14. She was like, no. But I wanted to be blonde because I was like, if I'm blonde, I'll get the boy, I'll be popular. Like, this is what I was seeing on TV.
Yeah.
And it was also kind of the trajectory of like our school. Like the blonde kids were the popular ones or the like tall, pretty, like fair kids. And I was like, oh.
But it's interesting, isn't it? Because over time, that representation, particularly the South Asian community in the UK, has changed massively
100%.
in the last couple of decades. Like for me, it was watching things like Goodness Gracious Me on BBC, which was, if people haven't seen it, it was that show really of South Asian actors, British actors, taking the mick out of South Asian culture.
Yeah.
And I have this memory of going into school, having watched the first episode or two at home. And I think I was sort of late secondary school at the time, and I vaguely remember thinking, oh gosh, I wonder how that's going to go down with everyone. And I went in and people were kind of laughing about it, but in a really with me kind of way. Yeah, in a wholesome way.
Not in a like they're laughing at you.
That was really fun. Yeah, it wasn't.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I was particularly nervous about that, but it was just interesting. I remember people being celebratory of that piece of art or that kind of show, that comedy. And there was nothing really like that before. It wasn't taking itself too seriously. Particularly those first early seasons were really interesting.
It started to shift for sure. I remember in year 6, there was this YouTuber and his name was Hamza, and he used to Diary of a Bad Man. He used to release these like videos of what it looked like to be like an Asian kid in a strict Asian household. It's like a Pakistani boy. And I remember doing the like rap battles about like Roti and his mum in the playground with my friends who weren't Asian.
Can you remember that?
I actually do know all the words. I listened to it the other day and
we'll do that later.
Realised I do know all the words. Which is somewhat shameful, but it's okay. But like that became really popular towards the end of my primary school era. But like I just remembered like not wanting to be Asian, but then like kind of loving the like individuality of Diwali and like did enjoy sometimes those things. I remember I was like year 4 or 5. We did this like dance show at school and it was like only Asian girls and we did it to J-Ho. And I was like, firstly, I was like, why would you pick that song? I was like, the worst one sung by the Pussycat Dolls of all people. I was like, you could have picked a proper Bollywood song and you didn't. Yeah. But I just remember like feeling really self-conscious because I was dancing to like an Indian song, but also being like, this is really cool. Like, I really like it. So I think I was just constantly confused as a child, unsure kind of where I stood, and definitely like didn't want to seem like the most Asian kid in the class. So like would actively pick on the most Asian kid in the class as like a deflecting, like I've got to deflect my Asianness onto this kid. Sai,
there's like hierarchy in your mind.
Wherever you are, Sai, I'm so sorry. It was awful. Gosh. I mean, we used to call him Curry Boy, quite literally, because his like shirts...
Even though you're the one with the curry sandwiches.
So awful. Yeah, we used to call him Curry Boy because his shirts were slightly turmeric stained.
Tinged.
Yeah, just tinged. We used to be like, he dips his shirts in curry, and we were like, ha 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 ha. And inside I was like, no one look at my lunch. So awful.
So as times changed and the sort of view of South Asians has maybe improved in your view, would you say? Or like there's been more representation in music. Like I think about a lot of the writers, the musicians,
Yes.
The artists. There's a lot more of that sound and kind of representation in movies, in shows.
Season 2 of Bridgerton.
Right.
I know Bridgerton has its things, okay? Aside from that,
we're not.
I watched it only for season 2 because they were like, have you seen it? It's got a female Asian lead. And I was like, no.
Right.
And I watched it and I was like, it was magnificent. I had a Bridgerton birthday after it because
because you felt seen.
Well, I felt so seen, right?
Yeah.
Like she was strong and powerful and beautiful and like stayed within her her culture. Like she wore the dresses and she valued her parents and education and she was like loved her family, but she was beautiful and she was like independent and she got the guy, like the guy, and I was like,
and it wasn't playing some cultural cliche.
No, it was
a stereotype.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
And I remember watching it and being like, Shonda, you wrote
it.
this so well. Good job. Well done.
So that change then is something that is happening in the wider culture.
Yeah.
And when you think of that from a Christian perspective, do you think that makes it easier to embrace being kind of a South Asian Christian, or is it just another danger?
I won't lie. I think it feels like just an added confusion.
Right.
It definitely has for me.
Yeah.
Like working out what that looks like. When I came to uni, I was one of the only Asians there.
Yeah.
Who was a Christian, and I was like, oh, I'm not in a place where there's loads of Asians, so I have to figure out what it looks like to hold to my Asian identity, but also what does it look like to be a Christian? Does it look like, do I just have to become Western in order to be a Christian?
Yeah.
And I love that that's part of where Naujavan came into my story. Like I didn't know you could love Jesus and you could be Asian culturally.
Yeah.
And I love that I discovered through Naujavan that you could do both really, really beautifully. And I think I'm still on the journey of like discovering what that looks like.
Yeah. I mean, maybe we all are culturally because I think when you grow up in the third culture space, like we're talking about, you are wrestling with some of those identities all the time. I mean, you know, I'm still doing that in ways that surprise me because I feel very Western in a lot of ways, and yet there are ideas and concepts. You know, culture is much more than just language or food, isn't it? It's kind of a mindset. It's
and the values you hold, right?
That's right. And we can almost spend our whole lives fighting that, trying not to be the person that God made us to be. And I guess that's sort of what we talk a lot about, isn't it? We talk about this idea of identity. You know, what is the primary lens of our life? Is it our Britishness? Is it our South Asianness? You know, is it the kind of language or the food or the customs or the traditions?
Yeah.
Or is it Jesus? Is he the thing that's at the front, and then everything else is filtered through him? And as believers, that's got to be the case. You know, the verse that we've talked a bit about is Galatians 2:20. It's no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. And the life I now live, I live by faith in the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me. So this idea that my identity isn't Sanjay just in his cultural setting, but my identity is now Jesus, and I live my life through him by the power of his Spirit.
Thank goodness, right? In a world that's so confusing and like has all these kind of different, you're this, you're this, you're this, like what good news that is true.
That is I guess without that, we're just kind of adrift, aren't we?
Yeah.
In the sea of culture.
I think I feel like I have felt like that most of my life, like unsure where I fit, unsure where I go until the day someone told me that I just will never be good enough, right? And that is like, I'll never be good enough as an Asian. I'll never be good enough as a daughter, as a wife, as a friend, as a student, as like in all those different cultures, but also in like...
What do you mean never good enough?
Well, I'll never live up to like the standard or this like expectation of what it looks like to be the perfect version of that person, right? Like, I'm not a doctor. I did
failed Asian.
I didn't marry an Asian man, and I'm like, I'm a Christian. Don't know what to tell you. I didn't do any of the things that I should have done as an Asian girl, and as the eldest. I mean, the eldest, not only the eldest in my family, but my eldest grandchild, like have often feel like I've let the side down.
Because cultural expectations put a pressure on.
Yeah.
I guess every culture has this, don't they, in their
Yeah.
own way, and to realize that we can't meet those needs. So when you say not good enough, you don't mean in terms of value or worth.
No, but just like I'll never measure up, and I'll never be good enough, to
achieve those things in and of yourself. I mean, I guess maybe someone listening to this is, has hit all the markers. Let's just say, that they've achieved in their career, their education, financially, they're doing really well.
Yeah.
Married the right person, got a brilliant family. Like, great, all of that. We're not saying that is not good. I guess the thing that we're pulling on is the moral aspect too. Are we morally ever going to be good enough?
Yeah.
And if we're not morally good enough, i.e. we're not perfect, then how can we really know security in our identity? How can we be sure? What would you say to someone who says, well, I've got all these things, I've achieved all these things. Isn't that enough? What would you say?
I'd say, buddy, I'm so sorry. I feel that. Yeah. I often think about this. I often think about I grew up and my parents split up when I was 10. And I remember thinking, if only my mum and dad were both in my life together and we'd had this nuclear family, here's how my life would have looked, right?
Yeah.
And I think about all the holidays we would have gone on and all the ways that my life would have looked, maybe things I would have gone on to study, places I would have gone to, things I would have done. And then I kind of just feel this weight of the way that things turned out. And then I look at friends of mine who had all of those things.
Just given to them. That was the cards they were dealt.
Had their parents in their lives, wonderful marriage, even wonderful Christian parents, right?
Okay.
Even had that kind of element of that, the faith element of it, and yet are still discontent with what God has given them and discontent because their worth and value is put into things they can achieve and how people see them. And I'm not saying I'm in any way perfect at this, right? But I realized I didn't need to have all these things laid in a row in order to be where God had put me and who God had made me to be.
Yeah. And that you are loved, that verse that we talked about, he loves us, he gave himself for us. I mean, the essence, I suppose, of the Christian faith and the message then is that even if you're not good enough, which none of us actually are, that Jesus is, and that he gives himself for us so that we might know him and he might live through us. I mean, that speaks a whole volume, doesn't it, to someone particularly from a South Asian background, but from your sort of background, who hasn't grown up in a Christian story, where you were probably told from a philosophical point of view and religious point of view, do these things, stack up these good deeds so that you can be good enough. And the Christian message is the complete opposite. You will never be good enough, so trust Jesus.
And are genuinely so freeing. You'd think someone telling you you'll never be good enough would be the worst day of your life.
Yeah.
Best day of my life. I was every striving, every effort, every tear I've cried, every time I felt like I failed because I didn't live up to, and everyone's standards are different, right? I didn't live up to them and I didn't do all the things I was meant to do. So freeing to know that I did the things by God's grace that he called me to do and he's asked me to do, but that I'll never meet the mark with other people and with God. And it's
and maybe, the thing we're talking about is so important because it's about who you are, isn't it? It's not just about the things that you can do, because anyone can be gifted and do lots of impressive things on the outside, but who you are at the core of your identity, that's what God speaks to. That's what the cross speaks to, that we are now a new creation, not just kind of bandaged up from an old person sort of trying to become better, but a completely new person. And when we think about identity and culture, we've often thought about what that means in terms of living the Christian life, because what we're not saying is, I'm not good enough, Jesus saved me, and that's it. Yeah. No, because he saves us, we then have lots that we can do for him and with him in partnership with him. And when you think about the kind of green flags or red flags, I suppose, of being a South Asian Christian, what would you say are some of the green flags for you in experiencing South Asian culture and the Christian faith both active in your life, not hiding from them, but embracing them.
Yeah.
Is there a benefit to that in your own experience?
For sure. Like growing up, our house was always open and people could come in, and my mum is a feeder by nature. So if you know anything about me, I am like my mother. I am a feeder. You will come to my house and I will feed you and I will send you home with food. Yeah. And it's just part of our DNA and our culture is to make people feel welcome and loved. And I think that's how Jesus did it. I mean, you know, he rises from the grave and he finds his friends. They go back to fishing because they're like, what the heck do we do now? Saviour's dead. And they go back to what they know, right? And he calls them over and he makes them breakfast. Yeah. And I'm like, this is the savior of the world. This man he just died for all of our sins and he's cooking fish. What does it teach you?
Yeah, I mean, hospitality as a value within Asian culture is huge, isn't it? And it marries brilliantly with the Christian ethic to be hospitable, to be generous. And hospitality isn't just, is it? It's not like having an IKEA perfect house.
My house is never IKEA. It's not perfect.
It's a
very small.
It's a generosity of heart and an open-handedness towards other people, which actually, you know, South Asian culture, incredibly powerful. Sometimes I think about the way that relationships are held in high esteem. You know, the value of marriage being kind of not just two individuals doing their own thing, but two whole communities coming together. And that community aspect there's a green flag in that.
Yeah, for sure.
Because we don't live this individual. I mean, in the West, and you know, I'm speaking as a total product of this, but it's individualistic lifestyle. It's kind of you do you in your own little corner and have your own world and not really worry about the rest of the world. Whereas a more South Asian mindset is very collectivist, is what I do affects the group and the group affects me. And that, again, I think when we read through the New Testament, especially, obviously it was written in a culture and a time like that. But I think there are values baked into that make sense for the way that God wants, particularly his church, to engage one another. Like when you're not meant to be a solo Christian out doing your own thing individually, you're meant to be in the fellowship of believers.
I think and how beautiful is that, especially when you come from maybe a family that doesn't know Jesus,
right? And
like there's a lot of loss and sadness and grief that comes with that, to then have family tenfold, right, in relationships, and it's been really healing for me, for sure, and has given me joy to love my family well when they don't believe the same things I do, because
you gain, even though there's a lot of loss in following Jesus, and like we got to be real about that. Following Jesus isn't always going to be easy. In fact, it's never easy. And whilst it's the best decision any of us can make, there's going to be cost in that, and real Christianity should feel like that, and yet there is so much gain. I think in this life and in the next. But you know, Jesus is challenged. I was just reading recently in Mark. You know, Jesus is challenged when the rich person says, "What do I need to do?" And Jesus challenges him. And one of the things that ends up in that exchange is he turns to his disciples and says how hard it is for a rich person to enter heaven. And his disciples are thinking, hang on, the rich people are like the elite people. If they don't get in, how do we get in? And they're saying, this is such a hard teaching. And Jesus says, well, with man, this is impossible. With God, all things are possible. And they question him more on it. And Peter, you know, in Peter style, stands up and says, well, we left everything to follow you. And Jesus says to him, you'll receive 100 times this in this life and the next. And this kind of idea of loss is a very real part, isn't it, for a South Asian person following Jesus, and yet gain in the community of believers, in the generosity of a church family. I mean, if someone's come to faith from that background and then is part of a church family that doesn't embrace them as family and just sort of holds them off, not inviting them into the home or not having meals together or not sitting together in a real way, that's really sad and difficult for that believer who's probably very isolated.
I think week one, when I arrived here, I think I maybe had 17 offers for dinner, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't eat that much food. And like, you know, since having been part of Lighthouse over the last 8 years, I know. long time.
Yeah,
Like,
and we don't do it perfectly.
just
You know,
been-
we must fail all the time. But I think the goal for all of us as believers is to try and be family together. But it's this huge aspiration up here, which
yes.
you know we're not always going to be perfect in. But I think it's a good reminder
Yeah.
that as believers we're dealing with all kinds of people who are counting the cost of following Jesus as he told us to, suffering for his name, which is normal Christianity. There's not like some anomaly to be people who suffer for his name and still say he's worth it and still follow him. I mean, there's something glorious, isn't there?
Whenever we have like South Asian kids come to our youth clubs, we're sharing the gospel with them, I'm always talking to my leaders like, just know that the cost for this kid is great.
Yeah.
Like for a Western kid who comes from maybe like an atheist home or a kind of like agnostic home, I mean, I'm not saying it's not difficult, but the cost is different.
Yeah.
Whereas for a South Asian kid who comes from a Sikh Muslim Hindu background, like they're counting the cost of their family and their culture and their home and everything they've ever known, which is why ministry has to be for the whole family, not just for the kid. Like I've got to get to know the mum and I've got to get to know the dad and I've got to get invited to their kid's birthday party and I have to go to that meal at their house because it's like you're sharing Jesus with their family because the cost for that kid is great. And it definitely was for me, right?
And that's slow work. That's not immediate results, is it?
It's not they come to a club and hear a gospel talk and they have been, having conversations with their leaders and it's great and they're kind of ready. Those are amazing and I'm so grateful for them. But you've got to have your it's like long obedience in the same direction, faithfulness. Just keep chipping away.
I mean, I was like, just maybe as we wrap up, I wanted to ask you about, because we've just done, you've just led this amazing week here. Just tell us about that, because that's the work that you do day in, day out alongside Naujavan stuff. But what was that week? What did you do here with teens?
Yeah, we had kind of like a week-long camp with loads of crazy Nerf wars and
inflatables, I saw.
Yeah, lots of inflatables and fun and a giant banquet.
And about 100 teenagers from the local area came through the week.
It was amazing. And every day they got to hear a different part of the gospel. We started with kind of intro to the person of Christ, like who is this Jesus? We talked about need and how we all have a need in our lives that we fill with other things. And really the only person that can truly meet our needs is Jesus. But there's this problem of sin that separates us from a relationship we were made for. And I used to hate the sin talk because I hated telling kids that they were sinners. But it has quickly become my favorite talk because you have given reason to kids' pain. You have said there's a reason mum and dad are fighting. There's a reason you've lost this relative. There's a reason school's hard. There's a reason you compare yourself and you don't like yourself. And
the world's the way it is and it's not the way it should be, but it's the way it is.
Sin and mess. And I remember hearing about sin for the first time and just being like, oh, everything makes sense now. It wasn't just my fault, right? Like these things that have happened to me weren't my fault. But I'm also a contributor to sin, right? I also sin against people and against God. And then you tell them about the cross and that Jesus went from literally heaven to earth to die for you so that you could be in relationship with God. And then we get to talk about his resurrection power, right? He didn't stay dead. And we have this gift of eternal life. And we had 18 kids give their lives to Jesus that we know of.
Come on.
And we now get to start on this discipleship journey with them. But I mean,
amazing.
It was incredible. But for a lot of those kids, like I said, the cost of following Jesus is great.
Yeah. And I think just love that model and that picture, because our desire is to tell the next generation and emerging generation about who Jesus is and what he's done in our lives and make that relevant to the third culture kid, especially who feels they don't fit into any space. And yet with Jesus, they have hope and meaning and a place. And Young Life's doing that. We want to do that. As Naujavan, we want to see God at work amongst younger people who otherwise are going to be caught up in all of that cultural confusion, family confusion, things that don't bring hope in the end. And I guess, all of this is to try and create space for that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Good.
I love it.
Good to talk.
My tea's cold.
Yeah. Cheers. Hi. No, what was it?
Just your name.